2, 3, 4.
Run up your engines! You can't blame the car for this one. A fat person sat on here really hard and dented the hood. You can't blame the car for that, but the usual. Plastic headlights are fading away. Now, the wheels still look pretty good. I'll give them that. That's still decent. And the paint isn't bad. It's dirty, but it's not terrible. Other than the bumpers where it's coming off. It's from being bumped and chipped. You can't blame the car on that either. But when you open it up, you come inside and start it up, you're going to notice one horrible thing. And that's the AC is blowing nice and cold there. Out of the driver's vents at least, but you'll notice the passenger vents have been closed off, and that's because if you open them up, hot air comes out of them. Well, it could be worse, could be hot air out of the drivers and cold out of the passengers, so at least the driver can drive it okay. And I checked it out with my machine, got my fancy scan tool. I can see that the control unit and the actuators are bad. Now the control unit is here. It's about 250 bucks. It's about $80 to reinstall another one and reprogram it, but it's also got bad actuators inside here. Actuator job on this is over $800 labor. Gotta take all the dash and everything apart. It is a royal pain in the rear end. And it's not like they don't break. They break all the time, the actuators on these GMs. If they would have made them simpler so that maybe the actuators be on the bottom, you could just pop them out, you wouldn't care. But $800 labor later, something you don't want to mess with. You're gonna drive a rigged car. I'll leave the right side on outside air, not recirc. Put the one that works on recirc, full blast. It's not too bad. It's blowing cold air at the driver. You can even put the driver's side and bend a little over there. But, I mean, come on. This stuff doesn't need to happen, but in GM vehicles, it happens all the time. We can see scrolling through, this baby's got a lot of problems. Electronic brake module, airbag system's got 8 faults. Vehicle interface communication module's got 2 faults. The theft deterrent module has 7 faults. And the HVAC control module has 2 faults. So, not exactly in fantastic shape. In this case, the transmission codes, transmission fluid pressure switch 4 circuit low voltage, transmission fluid pressure switch 5 circuit low voltage. Now if you're lucky, replacing the solenoids can fix it. A lot of times this is just a signal of the transmission just starting to go out. They only last so long in these things. This is not a Toyota. This is not a car that you can drive 300,000-400,000 miles. They are not made that way anymore. Just a general check of the interior. You can see the interior isn't so hot. The seats are falling apart. So they put these seat covers on them. At least from the outside, they look okay. But, you know, they're coming apart. Poor GM quality. Now it's a 4-door. Got a reasonable amount of space inside. The cloth seats in the back are decent. They're relatively comfortable. Not bad. But of course, there's no AC ducts coming out here in the back. It's just cheaper built, not as quality. Let's check the trunk. Okay, we'll push the trunk button. It lights up, but guess what? It doesn't work anymore. Just typical for GM. Hey, this is only a 7-year-old vehicle. It's not like it's ancient. But the trunks won't open now, and it doesn't have a key anymore to open it. It's just showing you low quality, low build. The quality just isn't there, especially as they age. Let's check under the hood. That's got a V6 direct injection engine, so it's got a reasonable amount of horsepower. But then again, they've had a lot of problems with the direct injection pumps going bad on these things. They put out a lot of pressure. They tend to break down a lot. We already know about the transmission having problems with the electronics, so let's road test it. We'll get inside, start her up. Well, at least it starts up. We'll give it a little gas. That's decent acceleration, but when it corners, you feel its age. It has a bit of oversteer and wobbliness in it. Again, it still has some power, but you can hear things clunking. Things are starting to fall apart, and it rides relatively rough, even though it has brand new struts in the front. So it still has some power left for passing and running. But you do feel like you're losing quite a bit of control as it's torquing out. You can see over bumps. It rides very poorly. Oh, well, at least the gauges all still work and there's no check engine light on yet. So what went wrong with the Impalas? Well, this particular one, this thing had a list price of a little over $30,000. So that same year, 2013, if you would have got the high-end Toyota Camry with the V6 and all loaded, it was the same exact price as this thing. And really, you cannot compare the build quality of those two vehicles. The Impala is so much lower than what the Toyota Camry is. It's no wonder that GM doesn't make the Impalas anymore. They were not competitive. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing this has better than the Camry is this has 300 horsepower. The Camry only has 268. But that's the only thing that's better at. The engine still does run. If you want a chance with this bad suspension driving it super fast, it will go faster than the Camry. But you're going to be a lot safer and you're going to be riding a lot more comfort with the Camry than you are with this thing. And truthfully, I've never seen any Camrys that you couldn't push the button and get into the trunk. For the money, the Impalas just were not competitive vehicles. The quality is so different than really well-built cars. Now, I mean, if this thing cost half as much, you'd say, well, it cost half as much. But it was almost the same exact price, within $100 or $200 of a Camry. Why would you have bought a car like this? Take gas mileage rating. You use gasoline in this thing. Now you can use ethanol, the E85, that's 85% ethanol, because this is a flex fuel. But if you use gasoline, it's rated as a combined 22 miles a gallon. The V6 Camry, it's rated at 28 miles a gallon combined and can get 35 on a highway. It's no gas miser. And since it is a flex fuel car, then it would go from 22 miles a gallon combined city highway to only 16, because ethanol has less energy in it. Flex fuel, another stupid idea, except for the farmers who grow the corn to make the alcohol. And even though it takes tons of petrochemicals and energy to create the stuff, and it's a net loss process, you actually put more petrochemicals into growing the corn, fertilizing them, moving them around with trucks, and then heating them up high enough to create alcohol than you ever get burning the alcohol. But the farmers love it because they sell a lot of corn. They weren't competitive. Their quality was low. The only thing they had was horsepower and bad gas mileage for a car of this size. For the modern society, where cars get much, much better gas mileage than that, with even more horsepower than this thing has. But there is a positive side to all this. You can get these used cheap, dirt cheap. Now, this thing, as you see, still had a lot of speed to it. Sure, it bounced around the road a lot, but you could modify a lot of things if you wanted. You can get these things for practically nothing, and they might last for a while and be a good commuter car. You just don't want to be the guy who spent over 30 grand on it when it was brand new, because then your money was flushed right down the toilet. So now you know the truth. Why are they not made anymore? And why they're probably not such a great idea to buy used, unless you want a really cheap runaround car that you don't care that things are always breaking on it. If you can live with the clunks and the bumps, and AC that only comes out of one side, you just pray that the other side doesn't break. Then you gotta do something about it if you live here in Texas. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Million Miler 24 says, Scotty, which cars today have non-interference engines? All right, well, here's something that you should realize, is that these days in modern cars, it's not something to worry about. Now, back a while ago, most of the manufacturers, decades ago, went from timing chains to rubber timing belts. The rubber timing belts are rubber. They could last a while if they're well made, like Toyotas. I've seen them with 250,000 original belt and they're still running. But they're still rubber belts. Eventually they're going to rot and break. You didn't want an interference engine then, because then if the belt broke, or say the water pump broke, if it drove the water pump, then it would fall off. The pistons would hit the valves, destroy your engine. So you didn't want an interference engine. Take Toyota. Most of their engines with timing belts are non-interference, other than a few like their V8 Lexuses. A while back, most manufacturers have returned to putting metal timing chains inside their engines, because variable valve timing and GDI, fuel injection and turbochargers, there's more strain on the engine, and the rubber belts really couldn't take it that long. So, even though it costs more money to make them with chains than with belts, which is why they went to belts in the first place, cheaper, they've gone back to chains because they know they have to. You get a car with a chain, you change your oil regularly, it's going to last just as long as the engine. So you don't have to worry about an interference engine. You only have to worry about that on old ones, like a lot of the Nissans had rubber timing belts and interference engines. I would not advise buying one of those engines. But today, almost all the cars have gone back to chains because of what I explained, more pressure in the engine, so you don't really have to think about interference engine designs anymore. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.